Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So last week I made a video talking about how to make a quick and easy cinematic color grade. Today I want to show you guys how to color match different cameras inside of DaVinci Resolve. My main camera, of course, is the EOS R6. My drone is a DJI Air 2S, and on occasion I might even shoot with my iPhone 12 mini, which actually shoots 10-bit footage, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. Now, all of these cameras have different color profiles that they use. So today we're going to take a look at how to get them to all look the same inside of DaVinci Resolve. So let's jump in. Okay, so we are inside of DaVinci Resolve, and we have clips from each of the three cameras I just mentioned: my Canon EOS R6, our DJI Air 2S, and my iPhone 12, and they all look drastically different. So we're gonna try and get them to all work the same. Now, before I go in, let's just go ahead and show you guys what my project settings are. We are in DaVinci YRGB color managed, and we are going to be using DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate as our color processing mode. However, again, this doesn't really matter. You can use a Rec 709. I just prefer the DaVinci Wide Gamut as a personal preference. And our output display is Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 to match the monitor that we are viewing on here. So our first clip here is from our EOS R6, and because we are in color manage mode, we can simply just right click, go to input color space, and we know it was shot with Canon Cinema Gamut on Canon Log 3. So we can go ahead and click on that, and our shot looks pretty normal. A little overexposed, but we can fix that a little later on. And moving on to our next shot, we have the DJI Air 2S, and this was shot on the D-Log profile on the drone. So you would think you could simply right click, go to input color space, and select D-Gamut D-Log here and be done with it. But as you can see, our colors look pretty atrocious here. It's very oversaturated, kind of blown out-ish. And yeah, it just looks really bad if we go back to our EOS R6 here. And this is because DJI kind of copped out when they produced this drone. So let's go ahead and reset this here. So the Mavic Air 2S does not actually record true D-Log, and therefore DaVinci Resolve is unable to process the colors correctly as they should be. This is more of a fault on DJI's part because their drone is incapable of producing the exact same color space it says it can, but you know, what can you do? However, there is a little bit of a workaround for this shot here. If we go to the DJI support page for this drone, DJI does support us with a Rec 709 conversion LUT for D-Log. So we're gonna have to use that. Not an ideal scenario, but it will have to work for this. And then if we come over here to our iPhone shot, it looks, well, it looks really blown out. It's actually kind of bad. And this is because the iPhone shoots in HDR, and actually, if I'm not mistaken, it is automatically already tagged as, yep, Rec 2100 HLG. So it is tagged as HDR, and DaVinci Resolve is trying to display on a Rec 709 monitor. However, we're still not getting the tones that we should on it. And I don't really know if this is Resolve's fault or Apple's fault or something in between. I don't know, but we can have a workaround for that. So let's take all of these shots, get them on a timeline, and get to our color page over here. So we are on the color page and ready to color match all these shots here. So what I want to do is I want to color match to the best shot we have, and that's going to be the EOS R6. It's going to capture the most dynamic range. It is the most professional camera. It just makes sense to grade everything to this shot. So I'm going to go to my HDR wheels here, and we're gonna pull our exposure down. We're gonna pull it way, way down. I'll just keep it going. Probably 2 stops. I do like to overexpose to just kind of preserve the shadows a little bit, and then I can push it back in just by pulling the exposure down. And I think that's pretty good right there. So we basically have a good starting point here to start color grading, but we're not going to color grade, we're going to color match. So we need this shot to look like this shot. So we have a little bit of work to do. Now, we already have the DJI conversion LUT here in our LUT directory, and I simply just dumped it in the default DJI folder. So it's gonna be this D-Log M2 Rec 709. So we're just gonna apply that to our node here. And let's just Shift S to add a node before. take a look at what we have. And as you can see, it's better, but our white balance is pretty far off. These shots are a little bit different still. So the exposures look pretty darn close. I mean, if we take a look at our details right here, they're pretty well exposed. I may bump this up. Yeah, I think that looks really good right there. We still have a little more compression in our shadows here, but I don't know, can we pull that out? Yeah, let's try and pull that up just a hair. We'll bump it up. So now that we have our exposures set almost identically, we need to adjust our white balance here. And we could sit here and tweak with these sliders here from warm to cold and purple to green, but I'm honestly going to just come over here to our vector scope to see what's going on and compare it to our first shot here. And we can see our drone shot has a lot more saturation in it. There's gonna be a lot more detail in this vector scope, and there's not as much on this first shot. So one of the things I'm noticing is that there's a slight shift towards blue, which is probably where these red and magentas are coming through in the dirt here. And we're shifted more towards yellow on this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and just simply shift this over. I don't know, right about there. Let's see how that looks. We're pretty much there. I may pull our saturation down. Maybe to, let's try 0.8, see if that matches. There we go, yeah, so yeah, that's basically good right there. These are spot on. Saturation looks really good, exposure looks good. These two shots are basically done. They're ready to go. You can start color grading, and you could probably just append whatever color grade you put on this onto this one, and it'll look almost exactly the same. Now we need to move on to our iPhone 12, and as you can see, it looks pretty atrocious. So if we take a look at our input color space, DaVinci Resolve is applying our Rec 2100 HLG look to it to convert it to a Rec 709 viewable format, but we're not doing it entirely appropriately. If we come over here to our CIE chromaticity display, we can see that all the colors that are within our Rec 709 color space, but we can also see, compared to our other shots, where all the color is contained within this color space, our iPhone, it's spilling out. There's a lot of missing colors here, and we need to fix that. And DaVinci Resolve Color Management by default is not fixing that for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to select bypass color management and disable the color space transform that it's applying, and we're gonna apply our own. So we're gonna come down here to our effects, use the color space transform tool, and this behaves almost exactly like the color space transform when you right click and select the input color space, but we have a little more control through these settings here. And to really make this footage look good, I'm gonna use Jamie Fenn's technique that he used to make iPhone 12 footage look normal. And I'll put a link to that video up in the corner. We're basically going to be doing the exact same thing he did. So we're just gonna go over to our input color space, tell it that this is in fact HDR footage, and use, let's see, Rec 2100 HLG, there we go. So once we have our input color space and input gamma select, we then can just go ahead and leave our output color space to whatever our timeline is. So that's fine there. And we still have issues again with our color spilling. So to fix that, we're gonna go down to gamma mapping and use saturation compression, and it just brings all our color back into this Rec 709 color space here. So with our color space transform being applied appropriately here, we can go ahead and close this out. Let's switch over to our waveform, and we'll just press Shift S to add a node before our color space transform. And we will come over to our curves, and we'll do the exact same thing Jamie Fenn did for his concept of converting this footage to Rec 709, and we'll just pull this curve down to about right there. And if we compare it to our other footage, we're pretty close. We're we're not too far off. The shadows are a little compressed too much, so I may add another point here. Boost it up just a hair. And I think we're pretty much there. There's obviously a lot more contrast in this shot. Because the iPhone footage is HDR, it is a bit of a backwards workflow trying to get your footage to look normal. We're dealing with log footage. We're trying to get our footage from a desaturated flat look to a contrasty saturated look. And our iPhone, we're doing the exact opposite of that. So it is kind of a pain in the butt to work with iPhone footage and goes against my typical workflow. So I don't use that footage very often, but if you are in a pinch and you need a camera and you got to film, it can be done. So this is how I color matched each of these shots here, and I think we're pretty darn close. So that is the basic rundown of how to color match all of these shots. I'm still not 100% happy with the iPhone shot just because the iPhone by default shoots things really, really sharp, and there's not really any way to pull that out. It's better to shoot in a more flat color profile and add things in rather than pull things out. So that's probably why I won't be shooting with it too much, but in a pinch, it can be done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, hope you learned something, and if you guys know a better way of doing this with the footage I have or other cameras, by all means, let me know and I would be more than happy to check it out. And so don't forget to give this a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.